One. Welcome to the Lightforge. This is Adwukta.
This is Merps. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, new decade upcoming. Yeah, lots going on. Lots of food, man. Oh my gosh. 'Tis the season to pig out. I'm giving myself another week of feasting before, I do clean eating, go back on diet. I'm sure you have a comprehensive diet plan.
Yeah, I've already started my diet. Started today. Today was the first day. Well, yesterday.
Really?
But also today.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Very clean.
I have a feeling that your clean diet is very similar to your non-clean diet.
I mean, I had homemade kimchi fried rice today. That's clean, right? That has like
super clean,
almost no fat, right?
I mean, that's super clean for the soul.
I mean, I feel like overall that's a decently healthy option compared to what I normally eat.
Well, yeah, I guess life is all relative, right?
So yeah, like it's not bacon, it's not butter, like it's not like drowned in sugar. I'm doing better.
That is fair. That is fair. I mean, kimchi, that's vegetables.
It is. It is such a vegetable. They don't tell you that.
It is such a vegetable.
You just think of it as a spicy thing, but it's actually vegetables.
Right.
And you don't lose any of the nutrition from pickling it and soaking it at all. Although I don't really know what nutritions cabbage has in the first place.
It never had any. So there you go. But anyways, guys, this is not sort of like a bootlegged Gordon Ramsay podcast.
What? I thought we were switching.
That's in 2020. That's in 2020. This is still the year of Hearthstone.
Okay. So, well, to start off on the Hearthstone stuff, I'm really glad that we pivoted from Pure Arena to this whole modes podcast thing where we can also talk about Battlegrounds, because guess what happened in the arena last week?
Absolutely nothing.
Guess how many weeks it's been since they released the game and did not microadjust?
More than one.
More than two.
More than two. It's been a while, and I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but the classes aren't exactly even. So Priest is under 40%.
Yep.
It is bad. Under 40% is, you're looking at historically bad territory. It's not like the first time a class has dipped below 40%, but we're talking about times in which, people were obviously complaining. We're talking about times in which people were saying that, like, oh, Blizzard just doesn't do anything with the arena, so I guess this is to be expected. But now, this is... Now that they have begun tinkering.
They're supposed to do this stuff. They said they do this stuff. And we haven't been complaining too much in the first, week or two because we expected them to be slow, but they're, slower than our expectations at this point. And we have very low expectations for Blizzard when it comes to the arena.
We have very low expectations. My expectations have been beaten down over many years by dealing with you. So this is just... In a way, I think this is you doing me a favor for trying to deal with Blizzard. So thanks.
It's like they push a button. They told this to us. They push a button, they verify some numbers, and then they hit the update. Like, there's nothing bad that happens when you micro-adjust, especially when there's no buckets around anymore. In fact, when they took away the buckets, they specifically said that would make micro-adjust quicker. Which
they did.
I mean, it's not quicker.
That's the thing I don't understand.
At one point, microadjust happened 3 days after the release of the game. Do you remember those days? It was 2 years ago. But
not really.
That used to happen. Yes. That used to happen for a couple or maybe even 3 expansions in a row, or 3 expansions on and off. Or it definitely happened. I'm not making this up. At some point,
I kid. I actually do remember that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things where we talk about low-hanging fruit all the time, right? We talk about low-hanging fruit, and this is one of those things where it's just look, this is real low-hanging fruit. Unless you are not telling the truth, and it's really complicated, in which, why would you lie about that? That would make no sense. It really is that simple, right? Or the way that you guys have been describing it, if you are correct in your own assessment there, it should not take more than a couple hours for one person because it is an automated thing and you just need to kind of quality check it slightly, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
You just need to quality check it slightly to make sure nothing absolutely crazy goes out the door. And then
We're good. And then we're like, you're just better than where you are right now, which is good. And worst comes to worst, you at least shook up the meta, right? Which is still good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Right now, like, it's not the most horrible class balance at the top. It's like 54%. I think it's Paladin.
No,
54%.
it's more so at the bottom.
Like, yeah. You have a couple classes like Shaman and Priest that you really don't want to play. If you want to see how Shaman runs go, you could look at our last arena coup. I think that's pretty run of the mill Shaman these days. And Priest is worse. I defied all chat's expectations with my Priest run by not drafting any Priest cards and just playing neutral. Because neutrals are pretty damn good these days, and Priest is pretty damn bad. So I had like 3 removals and just like neutral cards, and the neutral cards carried. I didn't do well. I was a Priest, but I got like 7 or 8 wins, and that was way above expectations.
That's a win right there, in my opinion. So yeah, it's a meta in which I think if you go on Arena HS, I think if you poll people, it's like. I want to paint a complete picture here because it's definitely not like the worst meta we've ever had. You know, I don't want to like.
And there's a few classes on the top, which makes it seem less bad, right? If you have just one class way above the rest, it seems really oppressive, whether it's like Rogue or Hunter or whatever. But now you have Paladin, you have Hunter, and you have, I'm blanking on it, Druid is the other class. So,
yeah, Druid is pretty good.
Yeah, so you got those classes, and then Mage and Warrior are like hanging in there too, like vaguely okay. And Rogue is not the absolute worst. So, but you really have 3 power classes in Paladin, Hunter, and Druid. So you have a little variety.
You definitely have variety, and the classes they you know, even though dragons are a thing, they do play differently. They have like different cards. And also because of the fact that every game, even though you have a lot of powerful neutral cards, you have a lot of card generation so that in any game, it's sort of anything can happen, right?
Yep.
Which opens it up. So a lot of games, even though they might be similar in a way, such that it's like, oh, everyone's discovering dragons. Well, you don't know what you get out of it. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but it does make games different in that you're seeing different things. Or you have cards like Big Ol' Whelp, which just draws into your deck. So it's good, but it's not like one huge minion like a Violent Worm, right? Which is a lot more boring if same power level as some of the cards that we're still seeing. It spices up the meta when you have sort of these cards that we have currently in the arena. So in terms of fun factor, and obviously fun is very different for a lot of other people, I think generally people might be having more fun in this meta than other metas. And the balance is not the worst we've ever seen. Our complaint mainly stems from the fact that
do something, Blizzard.
Yeah, it's like
it can't be that hard.
Right. It's like, is this a meta in which change is necessary? And it's like, yeah, whenever you have a class below 40%, like you can't have that. So even though you have not the worst balance at the very top, you have horrible balance at the very bottom. You have a class that is unplayably bad. So something needs to be done there. Even if they just came out with some adjustments, it's like, okay, we're going to use a light touch this time, which Blizzard traditionally does not do, right? They like hard nerf the classes that are doing well. It's like Paladins after a nerf, we'll see them lingering at like 5th instead of 1st. And then Priest will rise up. It's like, we need something. We need something to change it up a little bit. And it's definitely a meta that can be improved pretty easily, I think.
Yep. So that's Microadjust. I mean, we since the last Lightforge, we haven't been playing too much Arena because Arena hasn't really changed that much since before then.
Also, it's the holidays,
Oh,
man.
okay, it's the holidays. We feel like taking
It's
some
the
time off and
holidays.
doing what we actually want to do, which is Battlegrounds. Um,
Or watch Netflix, and for me, playing a
oh
lot of
god,
Diablo 2.
yeah, we'll talk about that after. But I do want to talk about one more thing in the arena, even before the micro. Like, you'll see us focusing back on the arena when they micro adjust, which has to be happening soon. I still think
Has to.
has to. Like, why wouldn't
Has
you?
to.
But yeah, but right now, my question to you, Merps, and to
Ooh.
people who are listening, why is Paladin on top?
I thought you were just going to end. Why is
Why is
Paladin?
Paladin?
Why
Paladin,
is
why?
Paladin? Why?
But yeah, like we know
Sure.
that rogues have traditionally high, class cards. Both of us, I think Hunter's the best. I think a lot of very good arena players think Hunter's actually the best right now, even though Paladins have the highest win rate in on
I
HS3
think
play.
Paladins are pretty close. Like
Yeah,
I've played Paladins, and they do feel really good.
yeah,
It's funny. Paladin is right now by far definitely more consistently able to be more aggressive than hunters. Like
yes,
yes, that's the
definitely.
thing. It's like if you're looking for that traditional hunter sort of play. Well, by traditional, I mean for me, traditional hunter playstyle. You're going to scratch that itch a lot better with paladins. If you want, to tempo out early game, make some efficient trades in the early mid game, and then just top it off with some good old face hits in the actual mid game / late mid game. Go Paladin. Like it's not going to be Hunter. You can. I'm not saying aggro Hunter won't work, but it is hard. And the run I drafted on Friday kind of is a great example of that. And I've played other Hunter runs as well, in which it's so hard to draft away from mid range or like value. It's like you are so forced, quote, forced to take Twin Tyrants,
Hmm.
diving Griffins. You are so forced to take all of this big meaty stuff because once again, we don't have buckets, right? It's not like, oh, I'm not going to take Twin Tyrant. I'm going to take Spring Paw. So you're going down a little bit in value, but you're like, oh, Spring Paw is still real good. No, it's sort of like, well, if I don't take the Twin Tyrant, I'm taking Silver Moon Guardian. I'm like, yikes, and I will do it sometimes, but you do that like 5-6 times in a draft, and man, you are really skimping on value compared to the other guys. So that's the problem. And with Paladins, you don't run into that problem so much because a lot of their premium cards are just less value oriented than hunters. Like hunters are so
They're very
value
tempo
oriented right
oriented
now. Yeah.
for your paladin top cards.
Mhm.
And like without the taunts and the heals, and again, paladin's the only class right now with like very significant heals. Like outside of priest and warrior, of course, and druid to some extent. But paladins have got that heal game on lockdown for this expansion because
Oh
their
yeah.
dragon is Bronze Explorer, which has life leech, and they have like their other healing cards are all in this meta, right? They also
The
have
Amber
that
Dragon.
dragon,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
Amber
Amber.
Watcher,
Yeah, yeah.
as another card. That's 131 is Amber Watcher. Bronze Explorer is 165. That's the rating on Lightforge tier list. Those are super freaking high. Like on top of that, even something like Flash of Light, right? Like it's a good heal if you
Yeah.
need it. So paladins are going to heal a lot, and they have reach because no one's taunting, no one is healing, which means you can go through with your reach. Paladins normally don't have reach. Direct reach is one of their biggest weaknesses, and for an aggressive paladin game. And now they don't need it. They can just buff to get reach, like Seal of Champs is reach. If you get a Light's Justice, that's probably 4 damage of reach, really. Like a Blood Claw is 4 damage of reach. An Argent Lance is 4 to 6 damage of reach. Like so, you've got ways to
Everyone has
get
True
reach
Silver
now.
now as well. True
Right.
Silver is so easily gotten. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and True Silver's 8 damage of reach. Like you look at Warrior, and Warriors have different ways of being powerful. They also have a very good late game with all the dragons if you get them. But warriors also go very aggressively, can turn on a dime, right? Like throw some weapons into your face, and all of a sudden you got to watch out. So in a meta that's very short on direct reach in general and very short on taunts and heals, having this like dimension, while paired really well with the fact that paladins have the strongest early game in the game right now, it makes it very nice. It makes it very, like Merps was saying, right, consistent. Like
so consistent, yeah.
You're going to get much more consistency with paladin than you are with druid or hunter. Like, and it's noticeable. You play like 3 runs, 5 runs. It's very noticeable.
So if you like to play tempo, if you just, want that smoother gameplay, right? I think that's a good way to describe it. It's very smooth, very, very easy to play, very smooth. So if you want that, definitely pick Paladin. It's not even close. Yep. Like it's not even close.
Well, that's the other thing. That's always the thing with Paladin, right? That's why I always say Paladin win rates are inflated. Anytime you look at win rates for Paladin, they're always inflated because they are always the easiest class to play. Or like, sometimes Priest is easier. But they're pretty much, they're one of the easiest classes to play. So whenever you look at Rogue win rates, for example, they're always deflated. Rogues are always better than they seem on win rates because they're one of the harder classes to play. Mages are actually one of the harder classes. I mean, they may be easy to play, but their ceiling is for how much your skill can impact the game is higher. Paladins just not so much. And so when Paladins are on top on the win rates, it's not, and they're not like super on top because Paladins can get oppressive if you get like, there's a 5% difference like there was in the summer metas. But normally, if you have Paladin in another class, and then like where we are right now, it doesn't feel that oppressive for Paladins to be on top. When it comes to like wins and things like that. When you're facing them, of course, because they are on the brainless side, there's oftentimes, like much more often than with other classes, where you're like, nothing I could have done would have changed the outcome of this game. I just lost to this Paladin. Or conversely, if you are the Paladin, you're like, nothing I could have done to win this game. I did my best. These were my cards. I did okay. They had the answers.
Right. I tempoed as hard as I could to try to get the Blessing of Kings off on 4. I couldn't do it, and I lost because of that. And you know what? That's fine, because I made the max tempo play on 1, 2, and 3. I live with that, right? Yeah. That's a conversation you're going to have quite often with yourself when you lose as a Paladin.
Yep. And, okay. So, I want to talk about one more thing on Paladin before we move away from the arena, and that is Sanctuary. I guess I don't have it written here, but let's just make it our card good bad. Card good bad of the day, Sanctuary. It is the fourth best card in Paladin, according to our tier list, behind True Silver, Consecration, and Seal of Champs.
And it still feels underrated. Oh my god.
Yeah. It is the new secret. The new side quest. It's like side quests and secrets. It's a new side quest.
Yeah, right?
It's 2 mana, epic, so you don't see it as much as you would otherwise. And if you take no damage for a turn, you summon a 3/6 minion with taunt. So summoning a 3/6 minion with taunt is normally 4.5 mana. Summoning it on a delay, which this will always be on at least a 1-turn delay. So even if it was just a 1-turn delay, it would probably be something like 3 mana, maybe 3.5 mana because it has taunt. So you're not actually gaining like outside of playing it on curve, you're not gaining that much extra from it, even if your opponent like lets it trigger immediately. So
yeah.
This is less about when to play it as much as about how to deal with it, because when to play it is pretty easy as the Paladin. You just play it whenever you can if you don't think your opponent can deal the damage without like committing mana to it. And if your opponent can like get rid of it, you still play it if you have like extra mana, right? Because you're committing your opponent's actions to be hitting you to the face or something. But you don't play it if you need tempo and your opponent already has stuff on the board that can hit your face.
Right. So you have to be really behind, like really, really behind for it to not be good. Even if you are just behind, the fact that they are forced to hit your face at least once every turn, there's huge value to that. So I've had games in which like I play it on turn 2 and, they have a minion on board. I don't. So I'm not getting it for a turn. And then I actually don't get the 3/6 minion until like turn 7 or something.
Yep.
But during those 7 turns, it still has helped me out tremendously because my opponent either has to, hit my face and leave something up, and then I get value trades, or they risk assess improperly and then don't believe that I have like a small amount of damage, and then so it's crazy how the effect is felt even when the opponent is hard denying you. It's so ridiculously powerful, and it's just such a feel bad card for the arena. I can imagine a card like that being, kind of a pretty cool tech choice in Constructed if the meta moves a certain way, et cetera, et cetera. But man, cards like that in Arena in which you're very limited in the responses that you have, right?
Mhm.
And it's like if we banned Flappy Bird, this is like worse. This is so worse. I know Flappy Bird feels even worse because you're introducing RNG and it like grows more and more. But this, you are even more so.
I don't know. I don't
Putting
think
like
it's
your eggs.
that bad.
No,
Okay,
I
I'll
think
come
it's
in with the
just
counterpoint. Okay.
I think it's just as bad as Flappy Bird. Now, at the same time, neither one of us were being like, "Oh, we need to ban Flappy
Mhm.
Bird." We were just like, "Well, I'm fine if you like want to remove it, but then you kind of need to remove a lot of other things,
Yeah.
right?"
So here's my counterpoint to how this card is super, super broken. One, obviously the card is broken on 2. It's meant to be broken on 2. In the arena especially, it's supposed to be broken on 2. But how broken is it on 2? It's broken in that it gives you like 1 to 1.5 more mana's worth of stuff that you should have. So imagine if instead of summoning a 2/3, you summoned a 4/4 for 2 mana. Like it's a Millhouse Mana Storm with no downside. That's approximately its value on turn 2. If you can play it on turn 2, if you can get it and play it on turn 2, and your opponent has no way to deal damage to your face. So if all those conditions line up, which will happen like, I don't know, half the time. Well, it'll happen like a quarter of the time. But so of the times in which you have it in your hand on turn 2, it'll happen like half the time that you will get like this situation to line up. So in that case, it's like you summon a 2 mana 4/4, which great. That's an amazing thing to do. That is super, super high value. Is it like game?
I mean, this is why
breaking?
Hildnir is still really good,
Yeah,
even
on
though
3.
on 3.
But like, is this game breaking? Like, is the swing so bad because you got an extra 1.5 mana on turn 2? No,
Yeah.
it's not.
No, it's
It's
just
not
like
that game breaking. Like, I think people just get triggered by it because
yeah,
it
no,
offered you
it is a very triggering card, and that's like it's like when stuff gets banned, right? Like it's the cards that are the most triggering, like MCT, Flappy Bird. It's the you're sort of looking at their swing and also how bad it feels when this gets played.
And
right?
ironically, the reason it feels bad is because it gave you a chance to do something and you just couldn't. All right. If it didn't give you a chance to do anything at all, and it just said like delay a turn, then summon a 3/6 with taunt, it would be less triggering.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
that's the silly part of it all.
By far.
But like it would just be flat out way more powerful. Like you always have the option, or you sometimes don't have the option, but like you could very well potentially have the option to not make that happen, but you 100% can always fall back to just letting it happen. So guys, just don't get triggered by this card. Like see it for what it is. It's a very powerful card.
No, you are the dude. You are definitely the person who like. I remember it's like there were a few times I was just like, okay, I know you're angry, but you just can't get angry at this. You're like, I can't do that. I am angry. Like you are essentially going against your own not even advice. It's like life philosophy. You're just like, no, if I'm angry, I'm angry. And that's exactly how Blizzard feels, right? And this is exactly why they banned Flappy Bird and they banned MCT instead of banning Primordial Drake, right? Yeah. It's like, I think most people would agree.
Well, MCT also punishes you for being good.
Yeah.
MCT was the biggest offender of everything, right?
Right. But I think most people would agree. And Flappy Bird, I think that's so appropriate. I mean, they're in the same expansion, right? They're in the exact same expansion. I think people would agree that on average, Primordial Drake is more powerful than Flappy Bird. But Flappy Bird feels a lot worse.
You would think most people would agree with that, but I don't know that like that's actually like a correct statement that most people agree with that. Like, I think most people don't agree with that. They're wrong, but I don't think they agree with it.
Yeah. Well, I think if you polled, I don't know, like infinite players,
maybe
more people would agree that Primordial Drake is, on average, a stronger card, like a better card.
Yeah, like given the two choices, you would take Primordial Drake as your like first pick.
Yeah. Primordial Drake is just that good.
Yeah.
But anyways,
so for Sanctuary, like I've played a bunch of arenas since the expansion, obviously, and I faced Sanctuary a number of times. I've lost to it once. The other, I'm not even like I must have seen this card like at least 10 times, and I have not lost to it the other times.
And that's my experience with it. But I mean, I guess it's like if your win rate is decent, you beat people with a lot of cards. Right.
And my win rate is decent, but I'm disproportionately beating Sanctuary even on my win rate. And it shouldn't be like that, right? Like, so sure, I have a low sample size of how many times I've seen Sanctuary. Probably going to get screwed against it, like, soon. But the point is, this is just like we used to say this a lot, right? When the Frozen, the Death Knights from Frozen Thrones were out, we beat Death Knights like 70-something% of the times. Like, we had records like proving it. Whenever we see a Death Knight, we still beat it 70-something% of the time, which means when you don't see the Death Knight, because it's like stuck in your hand and whatever, our win rates against Death Knights are actually insanely high. Like, you are worse off for putting a Death Knight in your deck against me and Merps than if you didn't even do that. So Sanctuary obviously doesn't have that problem. It's not really stuck in your hand. It's only 2 mana. But my point is, if you're like a good player and it doesn't come out on 2, you have a lot of options against this card that can actually show off your skill. And on the flip side, if it does come out on 2, and you don't have the options, just like accept the fact that your opponent played like the equivalent tempo value of a 2 mana 4/4. Like that can attack immediately. This is obviously better than a 2/4, but it's the later turn. So like bad, possibly game losing, like, but you live with it, right? We still live with Mad Bomber still exists in this game, and no one really has a problem with Mad Bomber. And Mad Bomber is RNG on top of a swing that is equally, if not potentially larger than the swing that you get from Sanctuary when you can't do anything on turn 2.
I mean, potentially larger swing, but like, yes, it's got that potential, but it doesn't happen that often because it's a double whammy, right? Like, you have to have opportunity put you in that position, right? And that a lot of that depends on your opponent, and then you have to, although you are doing calculations, you have to hit that. So
but what I mean is the swing.
It's very small.
The swing is the same.
Yeah.
And if that's the amount of swing that in the game is generally acceptable from a neutral freaking card, right? Like, well, then that's what's acceptable in the game. Like, you're playing this game, that's the swing that's acceptable. And this expansion increases swing in all sorts of ways, way worse than Sanctuary. Like, in terms of frequency, not in terms. So we had a whole last episode about it, right? If you listen to the last Lightforge, you'll hear my whole rant about swings and how they're doing and all their effects. Sanctuary is just a piece of that, and it's not even a huge offender of that relative to the other swings that this expansion has added. But it seems to draw the ire of a lot of people, and I think that's just a kind of a disconnect between like how triggered you get versus how much impact this card is like really, really having. Like, it's having a lot of impact. We rated a 172. That's really freaking high. It beats out Blessing of Kings, and this is its rating overall. Obviously, if your opponent can play it on turn 2, or if you happen to be like, let's say, a paladin, or like a warlock, or like, something, or like a warrior, something without a ping, it's gonna be even worse for you. But yeah, like try to just accept it for what it is. Like Merv said, right? These are the kind of cards that get banned. These are the kind of cards that Blizzard actually bans. I talked about Death Knights, talks about Flappy Bird. Yeah, this is right in that path of like feel bad. But those cards don't necessarily, like, I was never like against Frozen Thrones Death Knights being banned because they're legendaries and they kind of like do weird things to the game. But in terms of like actually affecting win rates, it's not that bad. Like, it's really not any worse affecting win rates than Seal of Champs. Like, that's the point I'm trying to make. So if you face a Sanctuary and you're like, oh my god, this is like such an unfair card in the game, just be like, okay, but I would be in basically the same position if my opponent had a Seal of Champs.
It's okay, right. It's in territory that is really ridiculously powerful, but it's not, you know. I mean,
not
we're
as special
talking
as people think.
I don't know if that many people think of it like that.
Okay.
But like, right, because they would have to think of it in super inflated terms. Like we have it as the 4th best card for Paladins, right?
Yeah.
Like of all Paladin cards.
Yeah.
So that's
really of all Paladin cards in this meta.
Yeah. Of all Paladin cards in this meta, right? We're not talking about like Sunkeeper Tarim and stuff like that. So yeah, like it's already really, really high. And I don't believe, I don't know, I might be wrong, but I don't believe there are people out there that think it's like, oh, it is the best Paladin card of all time.
Yeah,
I think most
when
people,
it first came out, people were like, "This card's not that good." We're like, "What are you talking about?" But I feel like people have very much flipped on that.
It is, I think, one of the most feel bad cards, though. I think it is one of the most feel bad cards that Blizzard has ever printed, like ever. And that is why I'm like, yeah, okay, this is problematic in that way. Like you said, if you really think about it, it's like, well, you know, you should be pissed off at Mad Bomber, the fact that it's a lot more common, but it's not that, right? It's, I mean, this is why people, you know, like if like people will get angry about the fact that they're like health insurance goes up, but they'll get really angry when the dollar menu changes to $1.50, right?
I don't know why they did that.
And by people, I mean you. But it's exactly the same thing. It's sort of like, if you think about it logically, I mean, yeah, a lot of things don't make sense. But it's like people get angry because of how they perceive it, about how it's like what they think should be normal. So that's exactly what's going on here.
All right, so that was a super long card, good, bad, but it's a very interesting card.
It's very interesting, and it's less about the card than like human psychology and Blizzard philosophy.
And like we haven't actually talked about how to deal with it if it comes out like later on in the game, and like you have choices.
Just be ahead.
Yeah, but like even if you're ahead, like here's the thing. Sometimes, like usually, I'm gonna say 85% plus of the time, spending 2 mana as the mage to hero power your opponent's face when you can't delay it otherwise in order to make good trades is worth it. 85% plus of the time. And if you're like a rogue, for example, it'll be even more worth it, right? Because you get an extra like dagger.
Now, I'm not saying that suddenly like the paladin is quaking in their boots. It's like, oh no, they are probably gaining a lot, but they are probably gaining more if you don't do something like that.
But on the flip side, if trying to use one of your minions to hit the face, whether because you don't have a ping or you need the ping for something else on the board really, really badly, and you're going to sacrifice a really good or important tempo trade on the board, or like you would have removed one of your opponent's things that could snowball and you instead choose not to in order to hit your opponent to the face, I think more often than not, you should just let your opponent get that 3/6 taunt out. Because keep in mind, your opponent's already paid 2 mana for it, and you probably already delayed it a turn or two. So your opponent's not really getting much value out of this taunt. And the issue isn't really that, oh, I could like delay it one more turn and suffer X amount of like value loss or tempo loss or whatever. It's that, well, next turn I have to do it again, and again, and again, and again. And the instant you let that 3/6 come onto the board, well, that's when you no longer have to do that anymore. So you have to factor that in when you're making the decision of whether to forego a good trade on the board in order to hit your opponent to the face. But, and I put that in a separate category than pay 2 mana to delay it. Paying 2 mana to delay a 3/6 taunt is usually worth it. Especially because it can be delayed indefinitely. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So that's it for card good bad. Sanctuary 172, very 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 good card. But manageable. Not a
Manageable.
200 level card. A 172 card. Super premium. Pick it. Fear it. Try not to get triggered by it. All right. Now let's move on to Battlegrounds. We've both played a bunch of Battlegrounds in the past week. Now that Arena is not being micro-adjusted, and I don't know. I always feel like if an Arena change is right around the corner, I'm very unincentivized to play Arena because the meta is going to totally shift. And then when Blizzard doesn't make that change, I'm like, what?
Any day now.
Okay.
Any day now. So, Adokta, we haven't talked about Battlegrounds in a while because of the expansion coming out. Tell us a little bit about how the meta has changed. This isn't new, or tell us what the patches have brought. Yeah.
So the first patch was December 5th. This came out right before the actual expansion launch. I'm just really quickly go over stuff if you guys are not up to date on it. So they added Edwin Van Cleef, Sylvanas Windrunner, Archthief Fam into the game. They removed patches Bartendotron, Pyramid, Professor Putricide, and Trade Prince Gallowix. They're gonna put Bartendotron back in, so ignore that part. And they also returned Mana Storm and Lich Baichal back into the game. So Lich Baichal used to take 3 damage to give you a coin, the power, and now it only takes 2 damage to give you a coin, which turned it from something that experts thought was okay, not super underpowered hero, but normal players all sucked with him and died, including me, into a pretty good hero for good players and an okay hero for us regular players. And Maleficent Manastorm got changed from +1/+1 to all max passive to +1 attack, no +1 health. And health is much more important than attack in Battlegrounds. So I don't know. I don't know about Manastorm. I saw on Collins's tier list that it's actually still rated.
Well, no, don't talk about the next patch before you do any sort of analysis, because you're just talking about stuff that is not.
All right, it all comes together. So Patchwork got nerfed from 60 health to 50 health. AFK has changed, so then instead of getting a tier 3 and tier 4 card, you get 2 tier 3 cards. It's a nerf, but now you can double up more easily. Rat King went from giving +1/+2 to +1/+1, so thankfully that got nerfed. Mm-hmm. And the Great Azka Marak will now be harder to get ice block consecutively.
You can call him Secret Guy. I call him Alakazam.
Okay, and it removed Hand of Salvation from the secrets, which is nice because I never understood what the hell Hand of Salvation did. Okay, so that's the December 5th patch. Then on December 19th, much more recently, there was a huge balance update. And this is the one that's going to super change the meta. This is the current meta. This is the current meta. We're now moving on to the current meta. So the most important thing that happened is Nightmare Amalgam is removed from the game, which changed up everything, because everything circled around Nightmare Amalgam. They didn't move it up a tier, they just removed it from the whole freaking game. 2, Brand... Okay, so heroes-wise, Bartendotron's back, Brand is gone as a hero. But, in addition, on the minion side, Cold Light Seer is moved back up from 2 to 3. That's the one that gives all Murlocs +2 health. Primal and Lookout is moved from tier 4 to tier 5 because it could discover tier 5 Murloc, so it never really made sense to be at tier 4. So those two got restored to where they were originally before they were moved down. Mechano Egg got moved from tier 5 to tier 4, instantly becoming one of the best tier 4 cards. And then the Beast and Boogie Monster both got moved down to tier. So now Boogie Monster's useful, potentially, early on. Is the Beast useful early on? I still never take it.
No. Look, cool. I do see it more often now than I did before, but so it's going from a 0 to non-0. That's it. Mm-hmm. And when I mean non-0, I mean slightly above 0. That's essentially it. So yeah, I've seen a few Boogie Monsters. Are they good? No. People sell them off pretty quickly. It's just when you bust with your tier up, right? And you just need something to play on that turn. Mm. Boogie. That's basically it.
I've taken Boogie a couple times. You just kind of have to. You need a big body.
Yeah. Before, if you ever had a Boogie, people were just like, okay, that's just objectively the wrong play. Mm. There was never a reason for you to take him. Now, if you see Boogie, it's like, oh, sorry, dude, you got a bad roll. I understand it though. Okay, fine. No one will just be like, okay, well, that was really dumb. Like, I don't need to see your play in order to know that was really dumb. Now people are just like, well, I could see it. It just means you super low rolled, which definitely happens in a game like this.
Okay. So, the meta now. Let's move on to the meta before we go back to the heroes. In terms of the meta, they nerfed Murlocs a whole bunch after giving it the +2/+2 tier 5 Murloc. Where are they now? Are they doing okay? I use Murlocs a lot.
Murlocs, look, Murlocs are still super duper strong, but they have become, and I think that this is what they were meant to be. Murlocs are now decently, pretty strong early game, and then have potential to super high roll in the late game to get Poisonous, Divine Shield, Murlocs, and just kind of win, right? Like, that's really powerful. And that's how it was before we had the Murloc meta. It's really hard to bridge now from that early game to the late game.
Yeah, that was always the problem. It's like a dip. Start off strong, you end strong. In the middle, what are you doing?
Yeah, so if you are committing to Murlocs and not just organically letting it happen / falling into Murlocs, you are taking a huge risk here. You are saying that I'm going to take a chance on this, and let me tell you, you are going to miss a lot more than you hit on Murlocs like that. So
it's also, I don't think it's as big of a risk because you only need 3 real Murlocs. And then you just have to have a Tide Hunter, and you play that right before you play your Megasaur.
Yeah, you can float in the mid game with let's say
a mix bag, right? You don't have to fully commit to 7 Murlocs.
You get 2 beefy Murlocs, beefy quote unquote Murlocs, and then you have your standard mid game S tier minion, which is Cobalt Guardian.
Yep.
You have your double Cobalt Guardian along with a taunt, a refresh for your Cobalt Guardian, and then you have 2 semi beefy Murlocs that you could get rid of, but you don't really get rid of because they're still decent, and you don't really need that board space anyways. Yeah. So that is one of those situations that is going to be a lot more common. And then suddenly in the late game, you're like, oh, you know what? I'm tier 5, just got a pair, and then I have a Megasaur. So yeah, let's do it. All right, double, poison, and Divine Shield. And maybe you get rid of one of your weaker mechs to just grab another sort of weak Murloc, because that's still a My X now right there, right?
Okay.
Build your own My X now. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. So that's Murlocs. Well, what would be next? If Murlocs are in the middle, what's worse than Murlocs?
You know what? We are actually in a meta right now in which a lot of builds are pretty decent. I would say Murlocs are not great right now. And one sort of one powerhouse build historically that's really not doing well right now is Menagerie. Since the nerf to Lightfang, Menagerie is just one of those in which, because you don't have Amalgam, and Amalgam was the that was the Joker, right? That was the wild card. It could be anything. Not having Amalgam just makes Menagerie so freaking difficult. And it made
buff Lightfang back up.
I think it would be totally fine. I think that if they were to revert the change to Lightfang, I think everyone would totally be fine with it. It's not. It doesn't make the comp better than Death Rattles. It doesn't make it better than Demons still. I can't believe I'm saying it, but no, I mean, Demons are still better.
Okay, hold on. How good are Demons, and why are they good?
Supremely good early game. So freaking good early game.
What's good about their early game?
Tons of stats. I mean, it's about stats per goal.
What minion? What minion are you doing? Because I can't I haven't figured out how to do a demon minion early game.
So what you want to do, but please do not force demons. I lost 500 SSR forcing demons every single game. And people can correct me if I am wrong with this. But I have watched streams and I have seen this. If you are actually going for demons, what you don't want to do is be stuck on 2 for a while. And being stuck on 2 is not something that a lot of people traditionally do anyways. But if you do want to go demons, and let's say you have 1 or 2 Wrathweavers with
the good demons are on 3.
Yeah, you have the your foundational building blocks on 1 in Wrathweavers, and then you have your other foundational building blocks, the Floating Watchers, on 3. On 2, you only have the Overseers, and the Overseers, it's just a buff. It's just a simple buff. That is the only demon that is on 2. Before, it was Amalgams, which is everything, right? But now you don't have that. So it's like 1 and 3 are what you want to get. And I think one mistake that people make are after they get demons, they're like, okay, now it's 5. Let me try to get to 5 as soon as possible.
What's on 5?
You want to be able to,
What's on 5?
Mal'Ganis, which makes your hero immune, which is nice and everything. But what you want to do is be able to buff up your Floating Watchers via your Wrathweavers before you get that Mal'Ganis to top it off at the very end. It's still not the most consistent strat. However, demons are pretty good. You're going to see demons a decent amount of time. Don't force it like I did. But if you are interested in demons, 2 classes that are actually pretty good with demons and more suited for it, and I think Collins would agree, or I know he would agree because he said so on his stream that I lurk in. Bartendotron is one of them just because of how it tiers up, right? You can get to 3. Bartendotron is pretty decent. AFK is really good with demons, especially you have to get a little bit double tier 3s.
This is why whenever I'm AFK, I find myself going demons. Like I never go demons because I don't really know how to play demons, and I stay away from Wrathweavers as an opener like as much as possible. So you don't end up in demon territory. But whenever I'm AFK, they're like I think half the time I'm just like looking at my options and I'm like, well, I guess we're going demons at least for the mid game.
Right. So what you want to do with what you really want to do with AFK is if you have Wrathweavers, it's like you're freezing for tokens. Everyone knows to freeze for tokens because then you get an upgrade and a free 2/1 if it's the Murloc, or 1/1 if it's the Kitty Cat. So you definitely want to freeze for those, but you should also consider, if you get Wrathweaver, be like, I think this is worth it, right? It's worth it just to get then the Floating Watchers and super just cruise into top 4 like that. So that's pretty good.
That's something I definitely never do, and I need to start doing. I'm just afraid because it used to be so bad. But yeah, like it. So my question is, let's say you don't get Wrathweavers. So the opener going into demons is you start off with Wrathweavers, then you're on this like demon path potentially. If you don't get Wrathweavers, is it ever, like outside of AFK, is it ever correct to switch into demon?
I mean, I'm not going to say no. It's really hard then, it's just pretty much really hard. Yeah, like because I'm looking at your typical early game and your foundational cards. It's hard. Like you have to get one of those really good rolls, and it's not like switching to mechs, which is easy. Like 1 refresh, and suddenly you see it's like, oh, I have a Cobalt and I have a Replicating Menace.
Yeah.
Boom.
Okay, so
mechs,
it's like Murlocs. Right? So demons are like Murlocs now, where sometimes you start off with them and then they build and they're pretty good. And then you have to I guess demons can go into the late game, and Murlocs have a dip, and demons are more the other way around, right? Demons have like a peak, whereas Murlocs have a dip in that mid game area. But demons come back to Earth in the end game because you can't do anything with them. They're just like stats, right? They can't get Divine Shield. They can't get.
They can get a ton of stats. And right now, so if you guys have not played since the Murloc meta and you come back, you might be surprised to see a lot of people very comfortable with just stat sticks, like non-Divine Shield, non-poisonous, just like big fatty. It's like 60 minions, 80 minions. You're just like, wait, don't they just die to 1 poisonous Murloc?
Like
and yeah, they do, but
no,
I know it's
more
like,
amalgams.
And I see this question a lot. It's like, wait, Merps, why are you just going for fat minions? Like it just dies to poison. It's like, yeah, and if I face the guy that high rolls late game Murlocs with Megasaur, I lose, and that's a risk I'm going to take. That's a risk that everyone is taking right now.
There's
because
so much
it just
fewer
doesn't
poisons
happen.
in the meta. Like,
Yeah,
without
it just
Amalgam.
doesn't happen.
With Amalgam, everybody had at least one poisonous minion. Now everybody has one less poisonous minion, and on top of that, you've dropped your Menagerie popularity and efficacy, which means fewer poison is there too. So you have to have a Murloc build, or you have to get a Myexna way in the late game.
Right.
Those are your two ways to get poisonous.
So we've talked about all of this other stuff. Let's just talk and get right into what is the strongest build, and the meta-defining build, the meta-defining sort of, the boogeyman is Death Rattles. Death Rattles with Baron, that is definitely the strongest.
So what are the Death Rattles you're looking for?
Well, so it can work in a couple of ways. So there is just the overall Death Rattle, in which case you have a Baron, and then you're trying to get something like a Gas Coiler, right? You're trying to get even stuff like what was it? Sky Golems. Those are pretty good. You can go for Bomb Baron. That was pretty popular even before the patch, but now is especially popular, in which you have like gold bombs taunted up, and then you just sort of bombs away everything with a Kangors to refresh your bombs as well. That's very popular. You can also go Beast Death Rattles. That's something in which you can't aim for all the time. Like, the stars have to align a little bit. However, if you get Death Rattles along with the Goldrins, and then suddenly you are just massively buffing up your stuff. Remember what I said, stat sticks are good. So if you have a super buffed up Hydra, or even super buffed up double Hydras, that's ridiculously powerful as well. So there are variants. I don't just want to call it Death Rattle build and have you guys assume it's one consistent one, but Death Rattles are really, really powerful right now. And then you'll see the bomb variants. You'll just see the summoning stuff variants. You'll also see the beast variant, and then a mix of these.
So the thing
the
to know
beast
about... Sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry. So the beast variant, that is like, if you see a beast Death Rattle one, that is just going to be by itself. Like, you have no room to fit in other stuff. But the other stuff, you could definitely see it's like, oh, we have bombs with a Gas Coiler. Maybe replace the Gas Coiler with the Kangors or something like that. That's
Gas
very
Coilers are beasts.
Yeah, they're beasts too, but it's a space issue. You don't actually want to play in certain subtypes of beast comps as well. Gas Coilers, because of the fact that if you are still playing rats, right, and rats have become less popular in those beast comps. It's more about the Hydras, but rats will prevent you or the Gas Coiler will prevent the rats. You have just this space issue.
Yeah.
And that's always been the problem with beasts. Like, 7 spaces are not enough for any build. Like, every single build would want more spaces, but it punishes beasts by far the most.
Yeah. The thing to know about the Death Rattle comp is that it's like, you hear this, right? Like, oh, it's triggered by Baron. Baron doesn't come in until like tier 5. So it's a late game comp. And it's a late game comp that you kind of switch into. Or if you don't get it, like, you have to find a way to like get it. It's not something that you're like building on like tier 2.
Yeah.
Like,
I will say, when we're talking about switching, Death Rattle is up there. Mechs and Death Rattles are 2 of the easiest ones to switch to. Because if you just get the Baron, first of all, once you get it, you are you potentially already have a couple of Death Rattle minions that you've stuck with from the early game. Like, maybe you have a Golden Spawn of N'Zoth, right? And you've kept it because +2/+2 to all of your minions is pretty good. Now it's +4/+4. It's like, oh, okay, I'm still going to keep you. Maybe you just have a Golden Bomb because Golden Bomb is really good even without Baron. Maybe you tripled up Selfless Hero as well. Or maybe you just have like a couple of piloted Sky Golems for tempo, and now you're just like, oh wow, these are really good now. So if you get a Baron, you probably already had a couple of decent death rattles, or if you grab a Baron and suddenly, you can start collecting bombs because they're very plentiful. They're tier 2 minions, so they're very, very plentiful. And then you can grab the other death rattles as well. And then same as mech. So it's very easy to switch into it, which is why you're even more likely to see it as well. The person who gets a Baron can look at their weird ragtag team and just be like, okay, well, I can do a full switch with 20 gold, like easily, like just a full switch. And you see that quite often. So be prepared for that.
So when you're talking about early game right now in this meta, you're starting off with either Murlocs or Demons or potentially Beast starting tier 2. And then you are going into a mid game where you can continue that, or you just don't hit any of them and you're doing random stuff anyway, like most powerful like thing that you're grabbing or whatever you happen to have a double of. And in the mid game, you can continue Beasts. You should be wary of Murlocs. You want to stick in the early game a little longer for Murlocs, and you want to get to the mid game with Demons and stay there. You can switch into Mechs at that point. You can't switch into Death Rattles yet. You'd still be doing the random stuff over there. But on the tier 5, when you do your ramp into tier 5, so the ramping to tier 5 is still a thing. And when you ramp to tier 5, if you get a Baron, you can still do the Menagerie thing. I don't think Menagerie is like dead. It's just not like as effective. Like it's not one of the most powerful builds. But if your build goes for it, right? Like if you have crap heading into tier 5, into your like tier 5, and you triple up, and tier 5 gives you like a Bran or a Light Fang, and you don't have like other good options, go for it. Like Menagerie is not bad. It's like at least at 7, like I'm ranked around 7,000. Mervs is ranked like around 8,000.
I was 8,000.
Okay. Around 8,000. Now it's like 7,500.
I'll get back to 8,000.
But like at least at 7,000, that works like just fine.
Yeah, one of the problems is so a lot of people thought, wait, like tier 5 was dominated previously by Light Fang and Bran. And now that Light Fang is gone, it's like, isn't Bran just the absolute nuts? And it was during the Murloc meta. But once you take out Amalgam and once you make it hard for Menagerie builds, and Bran really shines with Menagerie. It's just decent, like with a dedicated tribe. But if you're going Menagerie, oh my god, Bran is like the nuts, right? It is the best card that you could possibly have. So we like by removing amalgams and by effectively nerfing the power of Menagerie, Bran is not like that problematic. Like getting a Bran is still good. I think a lot of times you're still pretty happy with it, but you're getting just a very good card and not the most broken card in the game. In which that was Bran for the one of the previous metas.
Yeah. So your build is still becoming defined going into 5. Like, unless you're Demons, in which case your build was already defined, and unless you're Murlocs, in which you're really looking to make a decision of whether to switch off Murlocs when you get to 5 or continue on to Murlocs. And if you continue on to Murlocs, you gotta really think about when you're getting your Megasaur, right? Because that's your goal. You're nothing without the Megasaur in the even like early late game. Like your Murlocs are gonna fall off real quick. You're gonna be taking a lot of damage. So hopefully you didn't take damage in the early going because you were going aggressive. To be able to pull that off. But if you are going for the switch, like Nex is still the best like mid-game switch before tier 5, and after tier 5 it's whatever you get, right? Like you could talk all about like, oh, death rattles are the best, but really it's, do you get a Baron? You can't do death rattles if you don't get a Baron. So if you don't roll a Baron, you just go with whatever you get, right? This is still Battlegrounds. This is not like a plan your like build and then execute it kind of game. This is a roll with whatever you've got. And if you don't get a Baron, it doesn't matter if Baron's the best. You go with whatever is the next best you get. And so 5 can give you Menagerie. It can give you a Baron. At 6, like I think for Murloc, you can't like go all the way to 6 immediately. You have to make a pit stop at like 4 while you triple up into 5 before you can triple up into 6.
There is basically, I have never seen in which someone has. It's like even when you high roll as Murloc, you're not doing it, quote, honestly by going to 6 and then getting your first Megasaur. Yeah. It's like you're strategically planning to, triple up on 5 and then hit that Megasaur like that.
Yeah. But you got to get to
that's
5, and before that, you
yeah.
might as well roll a 5, especially now that Murlocs have 2 very good Murlocs
Mhm.
on 5.
Yep.
For beasts, you don't really like 5 is fine, but that's like kind of a backup thing. For beasts, you really want to get everything you can, and then like find a mama bear as soon as possible. And mama bear is also a transition. Like it's one of the latest transitions, so it's not like the best
It's
transition.
so late.
But
Yeah.
if you just have crap going on and you don't have, any of the things in 5 that you're looking for, and you get on tier 6, Mama Bear is pretty much the only tier 6 that will allow you to transition into anything. Everything else is just like a piece. So
Yeah.
it's still got that distinction. But otherwise, your Goldrin's like fine on 5, but you're not like dead without it, or you're not necessarily shooting for it. And if you do get it and you don't have other bees, it's not like that's going to be good.
So something that I really want to mention is you might remember a time in which people did transition, like do a hard transition to beast after they got a mama bear, and now that is 99.9% not possible. And part of the reason is because of the prominence of death rattle comps and how much face damage they deal to you. And it's one of the things I don't like about the meta right now, or really it's mechanically something I don't like about Battlegrounds, in
Mm-hmm.
which before in the mid game, when we were playing Menageries, I think that was like the most predictable amount of damage. And then you got to Murlocs, and everyone was everyone was pissed off at Divine Shield, Poisonous Murlocs
But they
because
don't know
games
damage.
dragged on. Yeah, like they don't know damage. That's the thing. It's like they could have 4 huge beefy Murlocs and they would still deal less than 10 damage. Meanwhile, there are Death Rattle comps like 5 turns earlier than that Murloc comp that I just told you about that are dealing 25 damage in the mid game.
Yeah,
So that's like
damage
one of
is
the
much more unpredictable now.
Mhm.
I don't
And I
like the
would say
damage system either. Although they did fix AFK
yeah,
a bit.
they did. So I think this is something that they need to change. If you guys remember, Battlegrounds is still in beta, so I think we should look at it in that way. They're making good changes. I'm definitely going to be a lot less critical of Battlegrounds than Constructed or Arena, in which it's like,
Mm-hmm.
come on, this is a finished product here for 4 or 5 years. So I think that they should change it. I hope that they will change it. One of the changes pitched is that anything that pops out of of a shredder or something, it's like no matter what, it's always 1
Yeah.
damage. I think that's fair. We're not talking about something like let's say Lich King
Mm-hmm.
Reborn something, right? That should deal the full damage because it's like I don't know. Like I would see Reborn as different. However, right now, I think we've all been hit with something that Collins pointed out when he was here to talk about Battlegrounds. It's just like Piloted Sky Golem with a Khadgar popping out double Gentle Megasaurs, and suddenly, you're dead
Yeah.
because of
What
that.
does mana cost have to do with anything in
Nothing.
Battlegrounds? Why?
Yeah.
Why do that?
Yeah, it's really stupid. And so it should just get the Mechano Egg treatment, right? In which case, it's not even a treatment because that's obviously a token. But I see a huge beefy minion come out of a Mechano Egg, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. I killed the egg, so I prevented the damage, and now this thing only deals 1 damage to me, even though, let's say in the case of the golden Mechano Egg, it's a 16/16. So yeah. And it prevents just all of this unnecessary RNG. I think there's enough RNG in Battlegrounds. Let's not introduce the Toxfin from the Piloted Shredder or the Gentle Megasaur from the Piloted Sky Golem. Let's not do that. Or Gas Coiler, and oh my god, I hate this. Gas Coiler spawning all legendary, like all tier 6 minions, and just killing me off like that. And that totally happens.
That's the best when Gas Color spins out a bunch of tier 6 minions with Baron, and then
yeah, I've lost
30 damage.
I've gone from first place, like comfortable lead with 6 players left, and suddenly I'm out. I'm in 6th place because they just chunked me for 30 damage in 1 turn. And That feels terrible. That feels really, really terrible. And no matter how pissed off people were during the Murloc meta, and I agree that was not a fun meta, you at least didn't have swings that are present now with Baron death rattles.
So back to my original question that I'm really curious about, just personally, mechs. The original OP thing, what was still good, still okay, and Mana Storm is back now, but lost the +1 to health. So is that still okay? Like, Collins has rated it like middle-ish. You've told me it sucks.
Do you like it?
Huh?
Do you like it?
I played with it once and then never touched it again because I did not feel like it was very powerful.
It's bad. Yeah.
All right.
It's just bad.
So what about mechs overall? They're like mid-tier? Like, you still want to switch to mechs in the middle? Or
mechs are good. Like, okay, so you know how you just advise people not to force anything?
Yeah.
And I agree with it. But if you were to force any sort of build, which, once again, you shouldn't, you should force mechs.
Okay, good. Because I still always keep a lookout to switch into mechs whenever I can.
It's just, Kobold Guardian is... I mean, if you're looking at... Okay, there's many ways to define best minion in the game, right? But it's like when people describe like fighters, they'll do like, oh, this is the best pound for pound fighter, right? Well, Kobold Guardian is the best pound for pound Battlegrounds minion. I think mostly everyone would agree with that. It's just for how early you can get it and for how well it scales and the amount of synergies that go with it.
Mm-hmm.
It is by far the best minion in the game, especially with Amalgam out. Like, there's no question now. It's Kobold Guardian, pound for pound, best minion, and it's like not even close. It's really not even close. Yeah.
Okay. Like, Kobold Guardian really should not get a Divine Shield until like after something dies. Like, I think that would be a good enough fix because you instantly like change your ordering and you remove the early game dominance for a late game like small nerf. Like, that's how I would change it. I don't think they can do that. I think that's like mechanically not possible to do in Battlegrounds, but we'll see what they do.
Yeah, I don't think that's possible either. But yes, mechs are still really, really good. And a lot of people still win with mechs. But if we're just talking about top comp,
Mechs doesn't beat Death Rattle. Like, every time I go Mechs, I lose to Death Rattle, like, close to the top. But
yes.
But it does well enough, right? Like, you're not complaining if you get to, like, 2 or 3 and you lose to Death Rattles.
Yep. So in terms of variety, like, if you're the kind of person who is just like, I don't really care, I just want to see more variety than we've been seeing, then you got it.
Yeah.
We are definitely seeing a lot more variety.
Very diverse.
It is. It's a lot more diverse than any other meta that we previously had, because we have just had, it's like the pure mech meta, which was at the very beginning, and then we had the menagerie meta with Lightfang, right? It's like, oh, get Lightfang and win, lol. And then we had the Murloc meta, and now it is Death Rattle meta, but you have more surprises. Once you get into the top 4, should you expect to see 1 or 2 people with Death Rattles? Yeah, you should. But you should also not be surprised to see demons there or mechs. Maybe someone high rolled a Murloc as well. You never know. You really never know. So that's pretty cool.
All right. That wraps up our Battlegrounds update. Now that we're all caught up, we'll continue to do both Battlegrounds and Arena. And it seems like Blizzard's providing updates pretty slowly to both game modes. Like, Battlegrounds, I'm actually surprised by how small the tweaks are to Battlegrounds, considering it's in beta. But yeah, Arena's obviously rolling out even slower, and we expected that. So hopefully by the next Lightforge we'll have more to talk about in Arena. But if we don't, maybe we'll dig deeper into the Battlegrounds and complain more about specific parts about Arena. So we'll see what happens in the first Lightforge podcast of the new year. But this is the last Lightforge of 2019. So wrapping it up, we will do a question from the GOAT. Merps, question from the GOAT. What do we got?
Question from the GOAT. Oh my gosh. You know what? We should just talk a little bit about sort of how you think your 2019 was, and what did you think of this year for Hearthstone and for yourself? I think that would be good.
Okay.
And we can also talk about what we've been doing recently.
Okay. So 2019, I switched day job, not like a career or anything, but I moved to a new company, moved out of New York into Charlotte. Those were pretty big. I got engaged. That was pretty big.
Big life things for both of us.
Yeah. So a lot of big like real life changes that, you know, I'm sure you see this in the podcast or the stream or YouTube, whatever you're watching, because like my you know background and stuff changes, but they're like pretty big like life things. Like living in Charlotte's hugely different than living in New York. Mostly for a positive for me. Not even counting the ridiculous amount of money I'm saving.
I was gonna say, the savings are a large part of it.
Yeah, but like even without that, I'm having a better time. Mostly because I don't like people, and there's like a lot more people in New York than in Charlotte.
Yeah, you've never gotten the value out of New York, you know?
Well, like, I did get the value. I got the value when I was in school in New York, right? I got the value in the first couple years of my career, maybe, and then afterwards, it's just like I want to be a hermit. And this is just a really expensive way to be a hermit that forces you to use public transportation and like be elbow to elbow with all these humans. Humans. Like,
yikes, man.
So many animals are so much better. It's something that I think most humans agree with. I don't think it's a odd sentiment. Anyway, so huge life-changing things. Like I have a car now and I drive, right? These are just huge differences. I've realized, in fact, this is how much I hate being like physically next to people that I don't even have to like acknowledge. So Charlotte has a light rail. I'm like a 5-minute walk from my apartment building to the light rail. And it takes me the same amount of time basically to use the light rail, and the light rail comes in the morning every 5 minutes. To use the light rail, get dropped off, and then walk to my work. As it does for me to take a car out of the building's garage and drive it into a parking lot. Parking lots are horrible in Charlotte. And then like walk out of the parking lot into my work. The same amount of time, pretty much. I maybe save 2 to 3 minutes on average. And I have to pay like more than $100 more for the like parking spot, like compared to just using the light rail. And I have to pay for gas, and I have to like physically be driving instead of being able to be on my phone, right? Like, you know, doing stuff on my phone or whatever, because I'm on public transportation. And the only difference is that I don't physically have to be next to people who don't bother me and are wonderfully respectful. This is not New York. This is Charlotte. People respect your space. They're smiley. They're friendly. But even with that, I'm just choosing to pay a lot of extra money a month just purely to not be physically around people. And on top of that, I'm losing like about a half hour a day of like time I could be spending on my phone, like, you know, either being productive or just like browsing the internet.
Playing your K-pop game?
Playing my K-pop game. I'm losing all of that. Like half an hour of time and paying money for it just to not have to be next to humans. That's it. Very nice.
So many K-pop coins squander. Is it coins or what do you?
It depends. There's like 5 different kinds of currency. I'm telling you, that game is the most freaking well balanced machine. Like it's a hidden gem of good balancing. For what it is. Like what it is not very complicated, but they get it. They do a really good job.
It's such a well balanced slot machine. Oh my god.
And, okay, if you've played slot machines, you'll know they're well balanced slot machines and less.
I played Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
Like of course. Don't talk to me about that.
And you like literally go into like MMO economies just to like ruin them for fun back in the day. Like,
I did.
You remember Flyfe?
I do remember Flyfe. I was the mob boss of that server. It was, anyways. That's for another time. So yeah. I get it.
Yeah. So that's my big life changes. You?
Cool. All right. Well, 2019 was an eventful year for me. Definitely got married, right? So I guess that was big. Got a dog. Wow.
It's like the most casual like marriage
moved
in
into
terms of like getting married. The entire time it's just like we want nothing to change. We want nothing to change. And we're like, okay.
We want nothing to change, and nothing has changed, and that's the way it will always be. So yeah, moved into our new house, got married, got a dog. A lot of changes, man. So too much adulting, and even stuff like refinance the mortgage. But man, 2019 is definitely not the easiest year. And it's one of those things where like life will throw you curveballs. Life will it will surprise you in ways that you don't want to be surprised at. So it was interesting. Like if I'm just looking at decades, because like 2020 is a new decade. Can you imagine sort of like where you were at the beginning of this decade? That it's like still 4.5 years until Hearthstone entered your life.
At the beginning of the decade.
Beginning of the decade.
2010. Yeah. I
was in medical school.
That was very different. Yeah, I was I think I had a job already lined up, but I definitely did not work at a job, and I was like busy, like I don't know, not going to classes and like.
This was you in your Chipotle bag and
Chipotle.
Coke Zero graveyard.
You say that, but that continued well into me having a
Oh
job.
no! But this was you, like your entire field of vision was just those things. I remember Kyle went over
long desk just to put Coke Zero bottles and Chipotle used Chipotle bags. Yeah,
no, this wasn't like bad. This was like, oh, we need to call like hoarders bad, kind of like yikes. Yeah, I remember Kyle actually he was like legit worried about you. He's like, people don't do this. It's like this is
But it's Kyle. Why does he not? He should have known that I don't do things people do.
Oh no! It's just like he surprised even you. You know?
I had exceeded his expectations for even me.
Yeah. It's like you were basically like the Steph Curry of Coke can graveyards, but then suddenly you want like super, like 60 points a game on 23s a game. Steph Curry, supernova.
It was one of those things where if you took a picture of my desk, you would be worried about me. Like, whether you knew me or didn't know me, you would be worried. But there was nothing, like, wrong that was going on. I just had a period of time where I didn't need to do anything.
I don't know about
I had a job lined up. It was a good job. I'm not going to lose it unless I fail out of school. I don't need to go to class to not fail out of school. There's literally no other incentives for me to do well in school. So I just didn't go to classes, which meant I played a lot of video games, and I drank Coke Zero when I play video games. Coke Zero has not been proven to be bad for you drunken in large quantities. And so I held on to that. It also has 0 calories. Pitch for Coke Zero. And this was the old Coke Zero, okay, where it tasted better and more medicinal and like chemically. The new one tastes.
It's like, you taste more like Coke.
Yeah, it's not the same.
How dare you try to make a more natural tasting thing?
Yeah, and you were in, what were you doing? You were in medical school in Newark.
I was in medical school.
I was living in Newark. I remember this.
I was.
It was so different.
Everything was so different.
Like, the periods of our lives have happened in the last decades that have, like, begun and ended. Like, where it's just like, yeah, that's not me anymore. But for, like, a period of 2 or 3 years, that was, like, totally, like, my life.
It's crazy. Who knew that things might change in 10 years?
Like, so much. I've always been a big planner. But, like, I've always been planning in like 3-year and then 6-year intervals, and so I have like 3-year plans and 6-year plans. I think I've mostly stuck to my 3-year and 6-year plans.
You're really good at sticking to your plans.
Yeah. So I think I'm like 85% of like accomplishing the exact things I had thought I would do like for every period that I look forward 3 or 6 years. So that's good. But yeah, next decade is gonna be crazy. You're married. Kyle is actually moving to you.
He's moving to you.
Yeah. Kyle's like a mutual friend. You guys really might see Kyle like on the maybe not the podcast, but like on the stream in the near future.
Maybe
he's like a top like ladder. He's like a ladder MTG player, right? But he's like in the top like 100 or 200 or whatever. He just doesn't play Hearthstone. And he plays Diablo with us, so whenever that happens, I'm sure you'll get to meet him. But yeah, he's moving to Arlington.
I don't know. He dies too often. I don't.
Yeah, he's not good at Diablo. He's surprisingly bad at Diablo. Actually, I could say that because he shouldn't be that bad at Diablo. it's hard to play so much Diablo and die that early.
I don't know. You're just comparing him to a god, though. Merps, the D2 box out god.
Seriously, Merps' D2 skills are... I did not know these were skills that you could have in D2. Like, stuff would drop
Box
in
out.
D2, and no one would see it drop, and then Merps would be like, hey, look, I found an SOJ. And we're like, you hacked it.
There was no. What you have to do as the Sork is, like, angle and then teleport in to box out the other guy right when the monster dies, so you can, like, click the item.
Yeah,
that's why I always
but
love
we
playing
don't even
sorcerer.
see the item. It's not like we can't get to it before you. We don't even see it, and we're all holding Alt so we can see all the items that drop.
That's
You're
mistake.
not even the host. Like, you know, the host gets that advantage in, like, lag and, like, you know, that kind of stuff. Merps will not be the host and pick up unique items that, like, the rest of us don't see.
That's your mistake. You're seeing with your eyes, not with your heart.
Well, in all future iterations of Diablo, that skill has become useless, unfortunately.
Yeah, that really has. Sad. They're never going to go back to
They're never going to go back to it, because it's just too triggering. It's just too triggering.
It's too triggering.
Because I would get triggered, and we shared our loot, and I would still get triggered.
It's every man for himself kind of thing. Also, it just creates bad incentives.
Yeah,
people, right?
Yeah, it does. It was always a weird incentive of, like, who's, like, getting to the front versus actually trying to kill Diablo.
Right. And you actually never wanted to pair up. Like, you don't want... Like, you can only pair up with people that you know, and then you're like, okay, well, anything good for my class, I will keep. Anything good for... Like, you just can't trust the other person because... Or, like, let's say a Shaco drops, right? And then it's like, well, Shacos are good for literally every single class, so who gets it? So, bad incentives. Anyways, I'm sure we will be playing, knock on wood, I'm sure we'll be playing Diablo 4 in this decade.
You remember, like, speaking of a decade ago, how much we wanted Diablo 3? And it was pretty close to the start of the decade that Diablo 3 like actually like first came out, and we all took a week off of work and school and whatever.
It was
to do that.
It was 2012.
Yeah, it was in the earlier part of the year. I remember.
It was 2012.
I remember because that was like when I first started work, and I was like, all right, I gotta take this time off. I hope they don't need me for like stuff.
Yeah, it was like late spring 2012.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Or actually just spring 2012, I think.
Spring 2012, yeah. It was my first vacation that I took from work. Like, a real one. And they were like, where did you go? And I was always like, I didn't want to tell people at work that I was, like, playing a video game for, like, 10 days locked in a room. So I was just like, oh, no, I just relaxed. And, like, you know, it was a staycation. I've been working so hard for the last 9 months.
Yeah, there you go. But anyways... What a decade, man. What a decade it's been. Pretty crazy. Looking forward to the new year. Wonder, you think we're still going to be playing Hearthstone in 10 years?
If Hearthstone still exists, I think we'll still be playing Hearthstone in 10 years.
Right?
I think Diablo 4, hopefully when it comes out, will absorb a period of our attention for, like, I think we'll like double those.
If it doesn't, I'm gonna be really sad.
Right? Like they can't. They learn from D3. And
it's not a
hard type of game to make.
I mean, look, I still play Diablo 2, and FYI, I am literally playing Diablo 2 as we record this. I mean, it is. This is what I've done for like the last, I don't know, like 20 Lightforges. Play Diablo 2 during it, and by play, it is the loosest definition of play. I am literally just walking down. I don't even look at the screen. I click on one enemy, it's Pindleskin. He pops. I look over at the screen to see what it is, and then I refresh. And this is it during the entire thing. It's like I have a fidget spinner during the podcast.
See, I can't even do that. Like, I can only concentrate on one thing at a time. That's why, like, you look at us play Battlegrounds, and I'm just, like, unable to, like, get everything in. Yeah. Anyway, Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, for Hearthstone, it's like someone in chat just said, are you going to teach your kids Hearthstone? And I'm like, no. I don't care if, like, I'm still playing Hearthstone 20 years from now and I have a kid that's, like, definitely fully of the age in which they could fully get all the things in Hearthstone. This just wouldn't be something I'm doing. I get too triggered. I get way too triggered. Because, okay, especially if you're teaching a kid, right? Like, they're going to be dumb. Because all kids are dumb compared to adults.
Oh man, I would never know how triggering it is to teach an uncooperative partner and guide them through a game. God, I wonder how that feels like.
At various points, I play with and I try to teach brand new my fiance about like Hearthstone, and she like likes to play. She legitimately plays Battlegrounds like sometimes, you know, when she's bored or whatever, like totally without me. And she'll like ask me for help or ask me to advise on stuff, and like afterwards I'm always like I can't, like, because halfway through I either like take over even though with my crappy APM and whatever, because it's just hard to explain everything in time, or I just get like really frustrated, and she is much smarter than a dumb kid, so I can only imagine that it's so much worse trying to teach like a 5-year-old or like an 8-year-old. So to those fathers or mothers out there who are or have taught their kids, their younger children, Hearthstone, I admire your patience.
Yes, that is true. All right. Anyways, guys, I hope everyone listening has a great New Year's. I hope you're excited about what the future has in store for like basically all these games that we've listed, mostly for Diablo 4. But I'm also excited to see what exactly they do with Hearthstone. I think they made some good changes. Is it enough? No, it's definitely not enough for now. But as players of the game, this is sort of our job, right? Like we want more and we are passionate for more. And that's good, because if we ever just get complacent, that means we probably move on to the next game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not a great thing.
All right. Well, question from the GOAT brought to you by our Patreons, patreon.com/grinandgoat. Thank you guys so much for your support. And yeah, if you want to feed the GOAT, head over to patreon.com/grinandgoat, and we appreciate everything. So thank you guys so much. Until next week, until next year. This is Adwicta.
This is Merps. Bye, guys.